It has been a hot minute since I have met with someone for Birth Your Medicine with Lesley on YouTube. And welcome back. I hope everyone's caught up on all the other episodes. And today we have Kim with us. And I always like to start with trying to jog my own memory around where we met and how long ago. And I was thinking about it this morning. I'm pretty sure it was through meditation. But I honestly can't remember if you weren't in my class, but maybe you were part of I think you were part of the teacher group, maybe at
Yes.
that time. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that because as you started talking in my mind, I'm going, okay, let's track back to where Lesley and I first met and, and you brought it up. So I always find we're so much on the same path, but different, obviously. But yeah, so I think it was through lifestyle meditation. We both did our teacher training together. I do remember that. It might have been before that. At least I think. Now I'm starting to question myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I was trying to think like if you were part of the teacher that who taught it, or if we were actually in that very first group
I
at
feel like we were in the
Providence.
very first, yes, at Providence. Yeah,
Yes.
I would
Okay.
say.
That's totally where it
Yeah.
is then. And I think it's so interesting, just like a lot of the other guests. Like I feel like you and I have like come in and out and in and out and in and out, and it always just ends up coming back to sort of collaborating together or just catching up together, or having these sort of paths that are like this and then they cross over and then they go like this. So
Totally.
yeah. And some of those are Peru, right? We both got to experience that. Some of the same carols, but like through completely different organizations, which I find even all the way across the world,
Absolutely.
there's still that connection there too. Um, yeah. So I was talking to you about before just about how the point of this channel is about how people come from usually something happens in their life and then they sort of turn it into their medicine. And I wanted to just kind of open that up for you to see, like, do you remember? Actually, uh, this is a curious question for me. What was your title or life before you kind of moved into the spiritual world?
Yeah. So I worked in municipal government,
Oh,
mostly in recreation. Yeah. So, and I mean, that started way back when I was, 16 as a lifeguard. And, I had a really interesting career. That feels like a whole other lifetime and something that I can't even relate to anymore. But, I managed aquatic facilities. I managed West Edmonton Mall Water Park for a couple of years. I went through construction and opening and operation of the Beaumont Recreation Center. So I really had this incredible career where I went from, lifeguard to, I think my final municipal title was with now the city of Beaumont. It was the town of Beaumont at the time. And I was the director of parks and facilities. And I always taught fitness on the side. And I remember the first yoga class I went to, I was that person thinking, okay, well, what is this all about? And especially in Shavasana, like, oh, I wonder how long we lay here. And I wonder if anybody falls asleep. And what are we going to make for supper when I get home? And I really didn't like it. I didn't like it. I liked the boot
oh
camps
my
and the
gosh.
spins,
Here's
right? You can
another
relate to
like
this?
here's another like I'm just laughing because I was a lifeguard from age 13 till I
Of
was 30 when I moved to
course.
Korea for the city of Regina. And now I'm like listening to you and I'm like, oh, there are so many things because same yoga. I was like, I went to yoga because I was like, I needed something to kind of like calm me down. Hated every minute of it except Shavasana. I was like, oh, okay, 4 minutes of quiet time. This feels really, this is so funny.
Love it. Well, and even deeper than that, I'm a Saskatchewan girl too. So I forgot about that about us. Yeah.
That's too
Um,
funny.
yeah, so I tried yoga. I didn't really enjoy it. But then something, I want to say it was probably around 2008, 2009 maybe. where, and that was back in when I would still make New Year's resolutions. I don't really do that anymore. But I remember thinking, okay, I'm gonna try this hot yoga thing, right? Because it was big. I mean, it still
Yeah.
kind of is big, but and I thought, okay, so I went to Bikram, and I loved it. It became my addiction, and but never did I think I would teach yoga. Never.
Mm.
And then I thought, after practicing for a while, I thought I'm gonna try something else, and I went to Yoga Life in South Common, and I found a whole other way of doing yoga aside from Bikram. I fell in love with that, and changed my practice to there. And then I don't know, at some point I was still working, not so much with municipal government. I had left municipal government by that time, and I went to work for a provincial recreation association. I was the executive director for them, and then I also was a teacher for them for a lot of years in pool operations, the mechanics and the water chemistry and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know, something, I just thought, you know what, I think I want to be a yoga teacher. And when I was working with the not-for-profit association, I was driving down to Cochrane every week, and I'd be down there 3 or 4 days. I did that for 2 or 3 years, and I loved it, but it felt like a stepping stone. It was definitely a stepping stone away from municipal government and into something else. And I don't know. I say spirit, brought me the message that I needed to be a yoga teacher, and so I had done my teacher training locally, did one locally, and then I did one, and I can't remember if this was after I decided to quit my, you know, $95,000
Mm.
a year job and be a yoga teacher, which my husband was like, "Are you
Right.
sure that's a good idea?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it'll work out." I did another teacher training in Thailand, and that was, I think, what opened that first door. And as
Wow.
we know, there are like an infinite number of doors beyond that. But yoga led to Reiki, which led to learning and working with crystals and theta healing, and just went on from there.
Yeah.
I would say, and then I just started my own business. Originally, I started as Empowered Life. I felt like that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was trying to do for myself. Back then, I still was like a lot of people. I still needed grounding. I still had a lot of unresolved stuff. Didn't
Hmm.
really realize it at the time, had a totally different perception of life. But it was the yoga and the teacher training in particular. And a lot of people take teacher training and never teach, but it's something that opens up,
Mm.
curiosity and all of these other doors, I think, and windows to peek into. And so
Yeah.
that's what I did. When I look back now, I really believe spirit. I say spirit. I mean, there's so many different terms we can use: God or universe or source or consciousness or whatever. I tend to just say spirit and lump it all together because I do work with so many. But I feel like spirit was definitely setting me up, to be a
Mhm.
lot more awake on my path.
Mhm.
In 2019, my youngest son, Tristan, who was really struggling with a lot of mental health and addictions, he passed away of overdose. And at that time, we had already done our yoga teacher, our meditation teacher training together. So I had a lot
Mhm.
of these tools to help me. Um, and honestly, that probably was one of the biggest things that got me through, like the practice of yoga and physically moving energy all the time. But I just had this awareness that, okay, I have two options here. I can heal or I can suffer. And that is it.
Oh, wow.
And I was so freaking tired of suffering. I mean, we've all done it.
Right.
That's what Earth is suffering.
Hmm.
I think. But I had some tools, and then I dove deep in. COVID hit, of course. Tristan passed away in November of 2019. COVID came about what, March 20,
March, yeah.
2020. And yeah, I just dove deep in from there. And that's when I really just went through so many doors. And that was probably the big turning point for me,
Mm.
where everything got, I want to say, flipped upside down in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
I know,
And
and that's
then it's
it,
just,
it's weird. Do you think like without you, and I mean, it's hard to say because you'd already, went through all of those trainings. And sometimes I often think about this and I've thought about this. I remember when I very first started my journey, I kept thinking like, am I doing all of this because it's preparing me for something that maybe I wouldn't be able to handle without these, you know, skills
mhm.
and things? Do you think that like actually that feeling, that same feeling of going like, okay, I actually have these tools in my toolkit versus maybe what you were doing in your 9 to 5 go 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 sort of corporate world life?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's just innately. I mean, when we start to tap into our intuition, and it takes a long time for a lot of us. I'm sure you went through this, I went through
Mhm,
this, or it takes a long time to trust that. But the more we trust, the more we dive in, the stuff just flows, right? I do believe we are all channels. We just need to be open. But
mhm,
for whatever reason, and I can't even tell you why, I remember when my son passed away and I got the call from his girlfriend. They were in BC at the time. It was a Thursday night. And I remember at that time I was always teaching the 6 a.m. class Friday morning. And I think most people would, cancel everything. Um, and it's normal. I'm not saying it's wrong to fall into the place of suffering because we do have to feel it.
mhm,
But
mhm,
for whatever reason, I still got up and I taught that 6 a.m. class the next day.
mhm.
And yeah, I was sort of an emotional mess, but you know what? That was probably the best thing I could have done for myself.
Right,
I
right.
also, again, I don't know why, I just started to act on my impulses. I went live on my Facebook and just shared what happened and how I
Mm.
was feeling. And that I think was huge for me.
Oh.
I don't know why. I still can't tell you to this day why I did it, but and then it just, it was just one step after another, after another, after another. And yeah, it just became life changing.
And I think about this too, right? Is that often when we're in things like what you and I do, a lot of this stuff is not necessarily always for the others. Like when you say you got up and you went to that yoga class. Yes, you were the teacher at the front of that room,
Mhm.
but you were showing up for yourself. Like you needed this connection. You needed this, container. You needed the practice for your own self. And then the others were just there. And I think that's this piece too, where even when you talk about the Facebook thing, when we get to like just freely express, because sometimes mothers or fathers of children who have died of overdose, I mean, they sort of shut down because they're like their own shame of like, did I contribute to this? What is this? And so holding that in the body versus really just go opening up and saying like, here it is. Here's the authenticity of this piece.
Absolutely. As you and I know, and many others, everything is energy. And
Mhm.
emotions are energy, right? And energy needs to move. And whether I was aware of it or not, what I was doing is moving the energy. And I probably still, I'm sure, that day, after the class or driving home, the tears would come. Um, but it was moving energy, even by speaking out, like you said. So many of us, the fear of judgment, or you said like the shame or whatever. And I definitely went through that. And I can see where I could have done things differently. However, you only know what you know, and you always
Mhm.
do the best you can with the good or the best intentions. But when I look at the bigger picture, and of course, this, it comes down to beliefs too, and everybody has different beliefs. And I think our beliefs change. I think our beliefs should change over
Mhm.
time. And my beliefs have changed so much. And as I then dove into other trainings, Dolores Cannon's quantum hypnosis healing, other hypnosis work, and and then the world of shaman work, I started to think, well, yeah, what if we do choose to, what we're going to experience when we come here? What if we do choose our parents? What if we do choose our kids? And what if we do have this, soul purpose? And when I look back, I really believe that my son's purpose, or one of his main ones, was to wake me up spiritually.
Mm,
Like when my kids were little, I didn't even know what a third eye was. But he used to come in when he went from crib to bed. He'd come into my room in the morning and he would tap me right here and say, Mom, wake up. Right. And I think his
mhm.
whole life, he was trying to wake me up spiritually, and he did. Um,
Right.
and the other thing I found, so, I look at it as, okay, if I would have not followed that, if I would have fell into the place of suffering, it all would have been for nothing. But by
Right.
me, and I'm still growing, expanding, and learning, but by me doing that, I feel like it honors him. And the
Right.
other thing that did was by me choosing to heal, which again is, the higher vibration, lightness, as opposed to suffering and heavy denseness, it allows me to have still a relationship with him, but in a whole new way. And I mean, I
Right.
could write a book just on the stories, the experiences I've had spiritually, that you just cannot make that stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's often what we see, right? People get stuck in that idea of the 3D and physical form of our loved ones.
Mm.
And then when I mean, for you, if you would have stayed in that suffering, to never be able to experience that ability to see his signs and his symbols and his communication with you,
Yeah.
um, because you chose to take that. And I keep, even as we're talking, I keep sort of having this vision of, this road, and there's all these different paths that, sort of come off this road. And for me, it's the same sort of idea as you were talking about that sort of belief system. I always think about some of the ceremonies that I do around fate and destiny, and that our fates often, if we can find that piece or that lesson or that gift or that medicine in it, becomes part of our destiny. And just like you're talking about your son, his fates and his destiny, there is that space of like previous, I think many people say, like, oh, well, they didn't get to fulfill their destiny. But it's like, what if they did? What if they lived 3 days? What if they lived 12 years? It's that in that space, people can really live out their destiny, versus thinking that it's this finished thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, on top of that, think of, if we think about, spirituality, I think a big part of that is understanding and becoming expansiveness,
Yeah.
which there is a lot more expansiveness, I think, across the veil than there is here.
Mhm.
And, again, beliefs and truths, what is truth? Who knows? There is no one truth, I don't think. There could be the possibility that when we do leave our body here, that there is some reconciliation on the other side. I believe that too, but I also believe, um, yeah, I just believe there's a bit of a freedom in it. I view death a lot differently now.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
sometimes, and every situation is different, but sometimes when I hear of someone passing away, there's a part of me that's like, good for you. You're not suffering here anymore. And I had
Mhm.
that experience even for my son. I remember so clearly, when I got the call that he had passed away, there was this intense like pain, physical
Oh,
pain in my heart. But at the same time, because he really suffered a lot, physically, emotionally, like he had, I think from all the stress and probably substance use, this huge tumor growing around his heart and lungs. He had had this massive surgery. Um, just a lot of physical and emotional pain and suffering. And in that
mm,
moment of learning of his death, there was also this sense of oh my God, thank goodness the suffering is over. And then
Right.
COVID, thank goodness he does not have to go through this, you know? So
Right.
it was interesting to have that duality of
Hmm.
like the pain, but also the joy
Wow.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My I'm with you. Like my view of death, I think working at the cancer center for me was a big shift in that. Because I saw people who, they had so many regrets. Like I was gonna retire, my wife and I were gonna do this. And then I saw some who just lived their life to the fullest. And they taught, like for me, I just remember observing them and thinking to myself, like, that's right, you do it on your terms. And I'll never forget this one young girl. She was 21 and she was in there for stem cell, and she brought in decorations and hanging things and lights, and everyone there was like, oh, she can't have all of this. And her room, her boyfriend would come in, she would shut the door, they'd say, you have to keep the door open. It was just, and I just was kept thinking to myself, she's not like, she doesn't have, if we have to look at this in time, she doesn't have a lot of time. Why do we have to take these little pieces of joy away from her, um, so that she can feel like she got to experience life the way she wanted to experience it? And yeah, I mean, I personally feel like sometimes those, and I've saw where those deaths were actually a lot easier because they weren't so dense. They weren't holding on to all of
Yeah,
that suffering.
absolutely. And along with that too, I have seen, and maybe you have too, where when people have made those changes and shifted, how all of a sudden the illness and the disease also gets eliminated and like miracle
Yeah.
healing happens. And I know
Hmm.
several people who have
Yeah.
experienced that. It's incredible. What is available to us, and yeah, we're creating it all the time, right? We choose. Most of the times we're not aware of it. Again, it's you're choosing to heal or you're choosing to suffer every situation.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
that path,
Just you have one or
right?
two choices. It makes me think of our meditation, the love or fear.
Hmm.
Like everything just comes down to the simplicity of things.
Yeah.
But we're so conditioned, like you talked about with at the cancer center, the rules, and this is the way it has to be. Well, um, and that's so limiting and it's so controlling. And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, how can anything grow or expand in that
And
or
and
change?
I like what you said too. It's those moments where when you're making a decision and it's not even necessarily you in the physical form making that decision. Like you said, you just knew. It's like spirit saying, you're going to go and you're going to do the yoga class, and you're going to go live, right? And like
Yeah.
here you are all these years looking back and being like, I don't actually know why I did that. And that's often where I say it's because it's coming from a different source. And
Absolutely.
and I think about all of those little things in my life where, again, you don't realize them until you look back and you're like, wow, that worked out for me because
Yeah.
I just trusted. I said the yes or I said the no, and that really worked out for me.
Hmm. I mean, everything is a stepping stone, right? It makes me think of, some of the teachings of the Buddha, which, we did also learn in yoga teacher training and meditation training. And the big one is that nothing is permanent. Like absolutely nothing is
Hmm.
permanent.
Yeah.
Um, Everything is going to change at some point, whether it's changing tomorrow or changing in 10 years. Nothing is ever the same. And but we grasp onto that, right? Rather than just allowing things to come and allowing things to go and recognizing everything is a stepping stone. And yeah, I'm with you. I can look back and see where everything was a stepping stone. And,
Hmm.
even looking back to those terrible things, whether it's, a breakup, a loss of a job or whatever, in the moment, it's hard to see, well, how is anything good to come from that? But it's like, well, if that thing didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened or that wouldn't have happened.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
now I feel like I trust that a lot more. And yeah, like you said, once you realize, oh, it's spirit, it's something else coming through me, then all we need to do is just be that open channel. And I think every single one of us is capable of that.
Hmm.
Um,
I 100% believe that too.
yeah,
I was just thinking, do you think that the suffering comes from the holding on to not changing, like holding on to everything?
I do. I think we create our own suffering. And I think where I really, I mean, I've heard this so many times, but I think where it finally clicked is there's two people that come to mind. One is Dr. Gabor Mate,
Hmm.
and one is Dr. Sandra Parker. And I only just know her one video, and I think I stumbled upon it. I used to use it. I don't know if you remember, I think you did the training for the path too. We used to teach that through
Oh,
lifestyle
yeah.
meditation.
Hmm.
And I found this video. Again, it was probably brought to me by spirit, but it's a 6 minute video, and maybe I'll send it to you. Maybe we can put it in the link of this
Yeah.
video. I must have shared this and watched it 600 times, and it probably took 100 times of watching it for me to really get it. But she does talk about, the Buddha and the two choices, love or fear, and pain or suffering. And she
Hmm.
explains it, how pain is when we allow ourselves to go to the very peak and to feel at its fullest. And from there, all that can happen is come down. Whereas suffering is never really allowing yourself to feel the worst of it, but never being free of it.
So almost
And
trying to prevent
oh, I get
the,
goosebumps.
yeah, almost trying to prevent pain from happening. So you
Yeah.
stay, yeah, that
Because
that
we are
makes
taught
tons of
avoid,
sense.
distract, suppress, right?
Yeah.
Whereas it's like feel it and then move it, right? And maybe that's what I
Mhm.
was doing when I taught that 6 a.m. yoga practice, was feeling it and moving it. And then there's still more to feel, and then move it again and feel it and move it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's Dolores Cannon that talks about, or there's, a lot of those great teachers, they talk about, if there's a hell, it's earth.
Right.
It
Right.
is the place of suffering. Um, and also, I've had other friends and colleagues and teachers who have often said too, like a rich life is one where you've experienced it all.
Hmm.
And why would we try
Hmm.
to avoid, because some of our greatest growth, if not all of our greatest growth, comes from our discomfort, like the
Hmm.
caterpillar turning into the butterfly, right?
Yeah, they've become mush essentially, right?
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think we have that choice, and it's hard. I mean, I was there too, where there was a lot of years after my first divorce, and single mom, and I suffered a lot, but I created that suffering. I see it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's hard to understand. You only know what you know.
Yeah.
But when you can start to learn and see and change your perception and realize there are possibilities and that there is something greater and that we're not alone, we don't have to do things alone. It's incredible. I mean, my life has changed so much in every way, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. I'm living my best life. And it's because of everything that I've gone through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just
And I
continues.
I think like that word, like you mentioned about perception, I mean, that's a huge one for me in birth your medicine because we can only, like you say, we can only know what we know when we keep looking at it from this way. But if we can zoom out and one, use the eyes of spirit, two, use the eyes of our higher self, and also get curious about like what
Mm,
would this look like from this person's angle? What would this look like from this person's angle? You get so much more information than just what you had. And I think perception is huge. And as you were talking, I was even thinking about the book that we are introduced, that Man's Search for Meaning, the Viktor
mm.
Frankl, right?
Yes.
And I loved that book and I recommend it to so many people who are in that space where they just can't seem to see past this thing in their life. And I'm like,
Mm,
read this book because he's saying like the whole time his survival depended on him looking at it from a different lens and yeah, his life. And I'm so grateful he wrote about that because it's about perception.
Yeah. That reminds me too of another book that we read in that same training, The Untethered Soul. And and the reason I bring this up is because I think sometimes we're not ready or things aren't in place, right? Like you said, we think we can see, but really spirit can see the bigger picture. And sometimes it's not the right time or something. But I remember the first time I read The Untethered Soul and I hated that book. Hated it.
Here's
And
another one
then,
of these.
but then about a year or two later, I read it again and I loved it. I thought it was the greatest book ever, and I recommended it to so many people. So it's interesting how, and that's why, maybe it took me 100 times of watching that 6-minute video of Dr. Sandra Parker to really click and wrap my head around what she was
And
actually
get a
talking
different
about and
perception.
how to
Mhm.
embody it, right? Because I think there's a difference. We can know something, but until you embody it, you don't experience that shift or that change, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
I and I get you. I remember like, and this might be for you too, when you started your sort of spiritual journey, or like, people call it like your awakening, or something's happening. My nightstand was just stacked full of books. Books like this, Untethered Soul, Victor, but some of them, you're right. I'd like to listen to books on audio, and I would just listen to it over and over and over, but it was not clicking, or I couldn't get that concept. And then all of a sudden you just put it away. Neil Donald Walsh, his conversations with God.
Conversation
I
with God.
remember, I really wanted to see and feel like what other people talked about. And I would read through and I'm just like, I don't know. And then again, there came this point, I don't even know what it was, but it was just like, oh, and I just then couldn't get enough.
Yeah.
So I think these things, I remember this one time, my girlfriend and I laugh about this all the time. She lives down in Minnesota, and sometimes like I'll be like 10 steps ahead on a journey and I'll be recommending things. Sometimes she'll be 10 steps ahead. And she kept telling me about this book, The Way of the Rose. And she probably, she probably told me 10, 15 times about this book. You should read this book. This book is really good. I mean, I remember her telling me, but I never went out to get it. And I was in Minnesota, and I had this experience, her and I looked down at her car door, and here's this book, The Way of the Rose. And I'm like, oh, what's this? And I'm looking at it, and she's like, what do you mean, what's this? I've been telling you, like, but it was that moment where
That's when
something
you
in me
needed it.
just, I just knew I needed to read the book.
Yeah.
And, I went home, got the copy, read it through and through. Um, so yeah, I think it's a lot about trusting the timing, that
Hmm.
even if people are listening to this and they hear these book names, and they might go out and get one and just be, I don't know what Kim and Lesley are talking about, this is really dry, this is
Yeah.
boring. And then there might come a time where it's like, oh my gosh, remember, I got to go back to that book.
I think what has been huge for me, and that I think is good for all of us to practice too, is not looking and trying so hard, but just being open and
Mm.
paying attention. I find probably, especially the last couple of years, yeah, the things will come to me, or you get the signs, the guidance. And where it probably became most clear to me was when I did my first trip to Peru,
Mm.
and sat with ayahuasca. And man, you think you get things figured out, and then you realize you know nothing. And my journeys with grandmother ayahuasca have been just unbelievable. I mean, we don't even have enough time to get into it, but I'm being guided to write a book, and I have started it, like literally just started one page, and I keep
I
getting the
love
message to
it.
go back. But that's where I really learned. And prior to that, when I used to even, I became a Reiki master, and I would teach Reiki training, and I always, and I still to this day, tell people, and I don't think of myself as a healer. I think of myself as a conduit or a channel, bringing through whatever needs to come through, right? And that was what I think I really, I mean, I knew that going into the ayahuasca ceremony, but grandmother ayahuasca just opened up a whole new world and a
Mm,
whole new way of working with consciousness
mm,
or spirit energies of all types. And it's just, it continues and continues to grow and evolve. And I'm going back in September again.
mm.
I'm
This is your third time,
fourth,
right? Fourth.
fourth.
This will be your
Mhm.
fourth time. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and I love that you used the word curious before because that is a word that's been uh, a, an important word for me the past few years for myself and to teach with others is to yeah get curious. Like even
Mhm.
when something yucky happens, it's like okay, what is this about, or what is the opportunity here, right? Or and to even get curious about how others are going to respond rather than deciding ahead of time
Yeah.
because we're really good at doing that, right?
Trying to
Deciding how
control
things,
try to control the narrative.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Yeah. When was it that you, because you were doing your teacher trainings and teaching yoga, all of these different things. When was it that you started to sort of feel the calling to do your away retreats? Because I know that's a big part of your offerings for people too.
Yeah, yeah. I would say because I my second yoga teacher training I did in Thailand. I don't
Mm.
know why, but I was drawn to go there. I wanted to do a teacher training way, and that was my first big solo trip. I was away 7 weeks, and I fell in love with Thailand. I
Wow.
fell in love
Did
with it.
that training just show up, or did you have to go sort of seeking it?
I did look for it. I knew I wanted to go to Thailand. Gosh, that's so long ago. I think I remember searching out a bunch of different sites, and I was just kept getting drawn back to Vakasa in Koh Samui. And so yeah, I went there and I did the training, and then I stayed in Thailand and toured around myself for another, I think, 3.5 weeks. But I just fell in love with Thailand, and I knew, okay, I got to go back. I got to find a way to go back. And I think I literally manifested doing retreats. I actually do you remember? I'm sure we've played it together. It's kind of a board game.
Oh,
The Wish,
yes.
the Wish.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Hmm.
my wish was um, to to travel and do retreats in Thailand. And then yeah, like it just happened so quickly. It wasn't even long after that. And again, it was probably spirit brought it forward, but a company called Breathe in Life. They were a couple that was they organized these retreats and they would hire yoga instructors. And so I got connected with them and I did a couple of retreats with them. I think I did two, maybe three in Thailand. I did one in Bali with them. And and then after I realized I could totally do this on my own. And so I did.
Mm.
So because I started to, have the lay of the land, so to speak, and I had some contacts. And so then I just started setting them up. And they did start as yoga retreats. They're not yoga retreats anymore. I don't even hardly do yoga because I just get people that want to come. And what I love about the Thailand retreat is I would call it a spiritual retreat without being agendaed or necessarily set up that way. It's more
Mhm.
of a travel adventure, but it just becomes such a spiritual journey for a lot of people. I take them to different places, and then once we're in this place, it's like, okay, you can do this, this, this. You choose. You kind of create your own itinerary. But we do some really interesting things, monk chat, which everybody likes to do. And you just see a different way of living, a different way of
Yeah.
perceiving. You see, one of the things I love about Thailand is, people live so simple. They work so hard. They work together, right? You go to a massage place and with a group of 5 people and they've got two staff. Well, yeah, yeah, come sit down, wait. And they get on the phone and, three other ladies pull up on scooters and everybody gets a massage. You never see that here. Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different way, and they're happy and they're healthy, and it makes you go, what the hell are we doing back home?
Yeah.
And a lot of people come home and they do change the way they live. Some don't. That's okay. But yeah, I this next year will be my 13th trip to Thailand.
Wow.
Um, and honestly, I think I'm getting the nudge though to pause them for a while after that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Because
just
you were doing Thailand, and was there somewhere else that you were?
Peru.
Oh, just the two. Okay, I was
Yeah,
thinking that there was
I
another.
I did do Bali a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. Thailand just has my heart. So over the two, I'll
Mm.
always choose Thailand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm being
Wow.
guided to kind of maybe step back from the international retreats for a bit. My husband's retiring, and so we want to travel. Still plan to do my work, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Spirit
Oh.
always decides, right? This is what I've learned. I can have a plan, but spirit usually has a plan, and I learned to not plan. Actually, I've never been a planner. Um, I'll share a really funny story that makes sense now to me. When I was a kid, I was a synchronized swimmer. Do you know this story?
No,
I may have
no.
shared it. It's a funny story. So I was a synchronized swimmer as a kid, and it was my very first time doing a solo at this like big competition in our home pool, in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and you've got Regina and Saskatoon and whoever else there. And I always did teams or duets, right? And we had this older British woman as a coach. Like, it just scared the hell out of us. I don't know why, but anyway, I'm standing at the edge of the pool deck, in my sequined bathing suit, and the music starts, and I do my little deck dance, and I jump in the water, and I go completely blank.
Oh.
Completely blank. I'm like grade 7, maybe. And when I think back, like most kids probably would have like got out of the pool, ran to the change room crying, but for whatever reason, I just came up and I started doing this, and I went here and I did this, and I just made the whole thing up until the music stopped and then I was done.
Ta-da.
And my coach was like, "What the hell was that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I forgot." Like we practiced for 6 months and I forgot it. But I got like third place out of 8.
Oh, wow.
So I think what I learned in that experience was that, you know what, if you just try your best, it'll work out. And I think
Yeah.
that became my approach unconsciously. Like I never really studied in school. I still ended up getting an A pen. I didn't even know it until I was going across the stage and my principal announced it. And my mom's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" I'm like, "I didn't know." But I don't I plan to a degree. I mean, obviously when I'm taking people to Thailand, I have some planning to do, but when I go out to Riverside, when I do a day retreat at Providence Renewal Center, I don't have a big plan because I find if I do plan, Spirit steps in and says, "No, we're not doing that."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Why waste
Because
my time planning when they can do it?"
that's what I find. I said, I'm exactly with you. I used to think that I have to have, like, okay, we're going to start with this, we're going to start with this, and this is going to be on time. But once you get those people into the container, um, it's really about what is actually going on in the container. And so if you
Yeah,
go in with this agenda that we're going to be talking about grief, and all of a sudden all the people that are there are celebrating, retirement and celebrating being a grandma, it's like, oh, well, this doesn't go. How
yeah,
about we just show up? And I think sometimes people, like, I think there's a difference between being lax, and just being like, oh yeah, I'm putting on this thing, versus, like you were saying, an open channel and expansive to just let
yeah.
whatever needs to come through to come
Just
through.
get curious.
I
Yeah,
feel like the moment I was able to step into that, everything changed for me. I felt
yeah,
like I could actually show up in the space versus like be here and thinking that I'm leading over here.
yeah.
There was a disconnect. I could feel it. So I'm sure in those first, me playing around with things, I'm sure people probably felt that too.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, there's this stepping into oneself.
Yeah. It makes me think of, and I'm sure you've had this experience because we're so similar. Um, but especially, so the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of the ceremonies, either private ceremonies or group ceremonies, very much like you. Um, I've been taught by the shamans. I'd studied with the Andean shamans and worked with the Shipibo, but I also still intuitively just let spirit lead. But it's interesting, even though a lot of times, like such detailed information comes through, and I know what's going on. There have been times, especially in a group, and I call so many spirit energies in, just like you, different animals and spirit energies and elements and whatever. And sometimes it's like you feel like you're not getting a lot of information, and then you start to go, "Oh my God, is anybody even gonna like experience anything?" And I always do a sharing circle after. I think you do too, and give the opportunity for people. And especially on those times where I'm like, is anybody even experiencing? It's always like the most powerful. They're like, oh my gosh, this happened and I saw that. And the other person's like, I did too. And, so I've learned more and more to just trust that, again, it's
Mhm.
not me. I just let spirit move through me. And the more I do, like literally, grandmother ayahuasca moves through my hands. I've started to have other consciousness, spirit energies move through my body, which is very interesting. But yeah, it makes our job so much
Mhm.
easier
Yeah.
when you don't
And
have
to
to plan, you
remember,
don't have to do, just
yeah, the
be.
ego is not there too. Like that is why I love teaching Reiki. Because you have people who are coming, they think that you people like you and me have these special gifts. And I'm like, no, I like 15 years ago, I was just like you, working a corporate job, filling out forms. You know,
Ah,
was there things in my life like that probably led me to be a lot more conscious and aware of people's feelings, thoughts, and things? Yeah, that was always innately in me. But I love teaching level 1 and 2 Reiki because you can see that aha moment for people. Because, initially they're like, okay, I think I'm doing, and they're just trying to force something.
trying
And
so
then
hard.
there's this moment where they're just like, oh, and then they're like, oh, I feel this and I feel this. And the other person's like, oh, your hands were so hot. And then they start to realize that less is more feeling. And yeah, it's just amazing. I love watching their faces. And there was a time where same thing. Spirit sort of was like, yeah, no more. Like, just take a break from that. And I did. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, it's time again. And I feel like it's
Yeah.
because there's these waves where the next group of people are ready to like step into that and start their journey. Because I don't know about you, I would say for me, it was the going to yoga that started with that Shavasana. Then I saw a magazine at the coffee shop right next door that it wasn't called Lifestyle Meditations at the time. It was called something else. But that led me to the meditation training and
Okay.
all of these synchronicities. And then that led me to the Reiki. And then that led me to the shaman. And I find these little, I like to call them like gateway,
Mhm.
these they're kind of acceptable. It's like yoga is acceptable, meditation is acceptable, Reiki is acceptable. And then pretty soon you get out into this field where it's like people are like, "What? What are you talking about?" Do you find that too, where
Mhm.
you kind of went through that
Yeah.
same sort of
Yeah, the
portal?
stepping stones and like, yeah, I became a course junkie, like especially during COVID. I mean, I could wallpaper this whole wall behind me with all the certificates. But something uh and this is a message I kept getting from spirit too, and certificates don't really mean anything. It doesn't mean you're
Mhm.
good at something. You can also be
No.
really good at something without a certificate. And I think while, trainings and education is important, I think it's really more about remembering than learning.
I
And
love it.
there was a
Yeah.
point, I remember I kept getting the message where spirit's like, you don't need any more training. And what I started to realize was, I mean, and the funny thing, I don't know if you found this, but when I started taking, like Reiki or theta healing or whatever, I mean, so many, they're like, don't do this with this. don't do this with that. And you have to do it this way. You can't do it that way. And that never made sense to me.
Mhm.
And because I thought, when we take a step back and look at the bigger picture, it's all the same. It's all energy and intention. That's it.
Yeah.
And like the simplicity of Reiki, we all do it all the time. What do we do when we bump our elbow? What do we do when we
Yeah.
have a headache?
A tummy
What do
ache.
we do when something has touched our heart? When we're lost for words, right? We've naturally done Reiki our whole lives. To our
Yeah.
kids, we've rubbed their knee when they fell. Um, and then the other thing was, yeah, just realizing that, okay, I don't need I just need to be open, surrender, and trust what comes in. And especially this past 2 years, well, since working with the ayahuasca, I mean, things just come, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it.
Mhm.
Okay. And I do
And
it,
then
and
you look
it's
back later and like, oh,
amazing. And
it
it's
worked
like,
out.
that was simple. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
didn't have to fork out $1,000 for this big training. I didn't have to, that was the other thing that I found so interesting with so Dolores Cannon's quantum hypnosis healing. You did that training too, didn't you?
No, no, I
No,
did
okay.
not. Oh.
Anyway, I mean, I love Dolores Cannon. I love her technique. When I took the training, I want to say, because it was US, I want to say it was probably close to around like $2,000 by the time
Mhm.
I paid the exchange to take that training. Um, Great, but it was all pre-recorded videos, which in a way
Mhm.
I like because I can do it at my own pace. Um, but now I see all the same videos on TikTok for free. The other thing,
Mm.
and I think Dolores Cannon would agree with me if she was still alive today, but with that training too, when you got to the end, all of a sudden you lost access to the videos. You didn't have them to go back
Mm.
to. And then you also had to do 20 case studies that you were not allowed to charge for um, before you could get your certificate. And I thought, this doesn't feel right in the whole, process of giving and receiving and balance that way. So I made the
Mhm.
decision that I would charge a reduced rate and do I think I got to 13 and I went, I'm already doing this. I don't need a certificate. I'm already doing it. So I didn't even finish my case study. So I didn't technically get the certificate, but I did incredible sessions with people. The other thing that
Mhm.
was interesting is I really felt like they could be done remotely through distance. We do distance Reiki. Why can't we do distance QHHT? But it was a big rule in the teaching. You have to do this in person. And so, of course, I started thinking, okay, well, why? What is, safety? Okay, what if they get stuck in hypnosis? Well, then I realized and learned you cannot. It's impossible to get stuck in hypnosis. Like you're either going to fall asleep and eventually wake up, like we do every night, right? I mean, worst case, maybe you get disconnected on Zoom, but I can give them a call. We can have, protocols or something, safety set up in place. So I would do most of them online. And what I loved about that is then it's recorded. The person can go back and not
Mhm.
only hear what's being said, but notice how their body is responding. They're not having to drive home after their session. They can just stay and integrate in the comfort of their home or go out into their yard. It felt safer that way. Anyway, friend of ours, I think you know Sheila Shorten.
Mhm.
Her and I did a lot of work together and we practiced. And she gave me permission one day to just ask some random questions of the subconscious, as Dolores Cannon calls it. And so I asked the subconscious, I said, I do want to respect what I was taught through Dolores's
Mhm.
teachings, but I feel like these sessions could be done remote on Zoom. Is this possible? And the answer was yes. And I said, okay, what do I need to do differently? And the answer just blows my
You're
mind.
already doing it. You're already doing
Remove the
it.
doubt. Remove the doubt,
Oh,
right?
remove the
Nothing's a
doubt.
problem until you make it a problem. Remove the doubt.
Yes.
And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, so, but again, so we are always creating our own problems, our own blocks. So
Yeah.
that was such a powerful moment for me when it's like, yeah, if you think something's not going to work, it's probably not going to work. But if you
Mhm.
trust in it, and especially if you trust spirit to make it work in the best way possible, not maybe the way that we expect it to work,
Yeah.
right? Then we open ourselves up to all possibilities. My
Yeah.
favorite
That's what I love.
saying this past year has been expectations create limitations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love how you, as we kind of come to a close, I love how you reference that remembering, because that's exactly, I feel like every training that Spirit brought me to. I'd never even had a Reiki session before, and I signed up to take Reiki. I'd never even experienced a family constellation. So I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I signed up for it. And like you say, these are significant investments. I've spent more time thinking about should I spend money at a restaurant than I've spent, thought it's just like there's this knowing, and there's this, I don't know, it's like each time you're right, there's been this remembering. I'm like, how do I know this? Like, have I done this before? And I think that's part of the process when we get out of our own way and we just say yes to those things. I mean, the funds always showed up. It just always worked out when I
Yeah.
was supposed to be in there and be remembering. And that is why I created Birth Your Medicine, because I see so many people looking outside of themselves. And I was one of them. And that's why I like to teach this now, is that I'm not actually the teacher in the class. I'm a student, because every cohort I have, and you've known this too in your
Yeah.
circles and stuff. Yes, we're there, we're facilitating, but we're learning so much and we're participating. And I mean, every person that's been in mine has taught me a lot, but I want us to be able to come to this space of remembering. Um,
Mhm.
and sometimes we just need a little bit of a different perception. And I think that's probably why we had the teachers we had, because we needed that change of perception.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
My medicine is spirit medicine. So I
Yeah. Oh, I
changed my
love it.
business from empowered life to spirit medicine because I realized that is the medicine. It's spirit, right? Whether it's the
Beautiful.
consciousness of a plant bringing medicine, whether it's the consciousness of an angel or whoever or whatever, that's the medicine for me, is
Mhm.
spirit medicine.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you for
Mhm.
sharing your medicine with us. And yeah, in the show notes, I will put, if you want to send me that
Dr.
video
Sandra
clip,
Parker
yeah,
video. Yeah.
and then I'll put a clip to your Instagram and your website so people can find you. Sometimes people are looking, they want to go travel, but they don't know where to sort of start. And so having someone who's got the experience who can kind of do all that for you. Nice.
Absolutely. And I've got a free offer people can grab in from the Instagram link. So yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you so
Awesome.
much. It's always such a pleasure
Yes.
to talk with you. And yeah, I love when we get together.
And
Spirit
just,
always does bring us back. So I'm curious and excited to see what will be brought back together with next.
yeah, me too. Thank you.
Thank you.